Okay, it's part 3 of the news roundup. Okay, so the French troops in Niger have been restricted to their base in Niamey, and I did post a video yesterday of the people outside that were keeping them in. They are multiple. That's why I said, like, the Nigerian army might seem small to people who are used to seeing the sort of size of perhaps the Ukrainian army or the Russian army or the American army, but you have to remember that there are 26 million people in Niger who have absolutely no interest in being slaves to the French anymore. So hopefully these chaps will all go home quickly. Nigerians reportedly marched to oppose military intervention in Niger, calling it injustice. As we spoke about earlier, there is very little public will for a Nigerian war. So the Nigerians are trying to come out in defence of their brothers here, and as I said, I would be pretty concerned if I were in the government in Nigeria, because this sort of activity of ignoring your own people is only going to lead to coups. EU mulls sanctions against Niger to put pressure on coup leaders. The EU fully supports the efforts made by ECOWAS and stands ready to support them, including through the establishment of new regime of individual sanctions. I mean, sanctions have worked so well in Ukraine, but what's interesting is the kind of glee that the EU seems to take in the idea that people in Niger do not have enough of things that they need: medicines, food, electricity. This is barbaric. This is a barbaric thing we're witnessing here, and we should all be very angry about it. Niger rebels reportedly asked West Africa's Guinea for help, thanking the Guinean government for its assistance, and urges it to increase support in light of the challenges faced by the coup leaders. I hope that every country in Africa stands with Niger, because it's the only way for this to stop. If there is a war, it will happen, it will be devastating, it will be murderous, and the same conclusion will be reached. This is an existential threat for Niger. They are not going to sink back into poverty and slavery just because we wage war upon them. So I sincerely hope that African countries realise this and stand with Niger, because it's the only way for this to end quickly. Ethiopia's powerful army enough to protect nation, military chief says. I love that flag. It's fantastic. So the Ethiopians are, quite understandably showcasing themselves as being strong and able to defend themselves, which I think is very, very positive. I imagine most African countries will be looking at what's going on in Niger and in Nigeria and wanting to showcase their own abilities to defend themselves. UN mission in Mali accelerates withdrawal as attacks intensify, and the Mali people have had enough of the UN stealing their resources and are kicking them out. I believe the Congo is also kicking them out, but having a bit more of a pushback, probably because the Congo has got even more natural resources than Mali. And that pushback isn't necessarily coming from the UN, it's coming from jihadist groups that just happen to be armed, and the ilk, which we all know are armed through the UN. Biden has been turned down by Congress when he's asked to give Ukraine even more money. I think he asked for 23 billion, 13 billion for military, and another 7 billion, so 20 billion for humanitarian aid. And the Congress has said, actually, this isn't even being audited. We can't keep providing this money. It's not making a difference. So hopefully that will see a shift in what's going on. Germany set for gas shortages in case of freezing winter. I think this is going to be a very cold winter, and I urge everyone in Europe to make whatever provisions they can for that. If you have access to an open fire, please stock up with wood. If you can get yourself a few solar panels, please do so. You know, don't worry about holidays this year, don't worry about anything, but making sure that you can keep your family alive, because I tell you what, this could get really, really dark. Germany will face the risk of severe gas shortages until early 2027 unless it builds additional fuel infrastructure to smooth out possible cold weather stress. I mean, this is a country that have not just turned off their nuclear reactors, they filled the pipes with acid, making them unusable. I am super concerned for Germany on the onset of this winter. I really, really am. They have made some terrible decisions, and there is absolutely no way that, for example, the United States is going to be any sort of ally when, you know, the shit really hits the fan. China receives oil from Russia via the Arctic. This is very big news. So if you look at the trade routes around the world, they are all patrolled by the Americans. The only route that the Americans do not have control over is this Arctic route that goes around Russia and down to China. And the Russians have been very, very busy producing kind of ice breaking boats and stuff so that they can actually get tankers through this passageway. And with global warming, that's sort of accelerated things. And I don't mean global warming caused by humans. I mean the earth naturally warming, just to clarify. Anyway, if this is being used as a trade route, that's huge, absolutely huge for China and Russia. The US real estate market is on the verge of a new disaster. The ratio of mortgagees' debt to their salaries has surged to 40%. The situation marks the increasing risk and a possible collapse should some black swan emerge suddenly, just like in 2007-2008 when the ratio was 39.1. Lots of people are going to lose their homes. That is the simple reality. People are unable to afford housing, and the governments are doing nothing, as far as I can see, about this. Imports of goods from China to America in the first half of 2023 collapsed immediately by 25%, and its share in US imports decreased to 13.3%. Now Mexico has become the largest trading partner of the United States. Canada is in second place, and only in third is China. So we're seeing a big shift here, and I'm not sure that it's a shift that's going to benefit America, I'm quite honest with you. There are more than 4 million refugees from Ukraine in Europe for many reasons. This I find very, very worrying. And, you know, this is one of the reasons why this war has cost so much to the EU people, is because, you know, we're actually paying an awful lot of money for each of those refugees, far more than we would for one of our own who are in any sort of dire straits. And as we know, this is the start of June. They did this report end of June. I'd be very interested what the result was from the end of July, because it seems like most of them have taken their pay packet and gone back to Ukraine for a nice beach holiday. A new insurgency has started in Somaliland. A group of soldiers had deserted from the Somaliland armed forces and formed the Galib Mountain rebels in the central part of the state on the Galib Mountain. Very worrying stuff, and again, more instability in Africa. This is a fascinating video that John put up on my Telegram channel, Diplomacy is Free, which he basically runs, and it shows a Ukrainian woman in Alaska who's horrified to see the amount of Russian goods that are in Alaskan supermarkets. But as we know, Russian goods are far cheaper, and Alaska is Russian. Nigerian public doctors end strike after talks with lawmakers. I think they played this exactly right. They picked exactly the right time to do this, because they couldn't risk having any more hell on their doorstep, so had to succumb to their demands. That's the end of part 3. Please tune in for part 4.